Welcome to Global Take, presented by SchoolRubric, a show about the international teaching experience. Teaching internationally is one of the best decisions you can make as an educator. In this show, we will meet teachers and administrators from around the globe living and working internationally. Our hope is that their stories and experiences will inspire you to explore the world of education. We will learn about all aspects of international teaching, from becoming an international teacher to what countries are the best fit for you, to the challenges of being away from your home country. Come take this unforgettable journey to the world of international schools with Global Take, presented by SchoolRubric. Welcome to Global Take, presented by SchoolRubric. This is a show about the international teaching experience. I'm very excited to be here today. We have already had several fantastic episodes connecting athletics and activity directors in international schools across the world. And we've gotten some great feedback from all of you. So thank you so much for that. And we've realized the importance of connecting educators and talking about our shared love, interest, experience, as well as challenges in international schools. So we've decided to build upon what we've already been doing with our host Nick, who's been doing a lot with athletics and activities, and we're still going to be doing that. So don't worry if you're an athletics director or in athletics. We are going to be going back to some more shows regarding that soon. But we wanted to build on those great discussions and connect about engage international schools. So that's what we're here to do today, is really to connect everybody that is in this international teaching experience. I am your host, Ryan Sagare. I was an international educator myself for over 10 years. I'm also the co-founder of the nonprofit organization, SchoolRubric. I couldn't be more excited to be here today. And today we are going to be talking about why every educator should go international. Okay. There are so many compelling reasons that we want to discuss as to why you could go international or should consider the international teaching experience. We know and realize that making that move to go abroad is a huge professional and personal decision. And so it is really important that making that right fit with your school and community, it's so essential so that you can have the biggest impact as possible with the students that we serve in these communities. Okay, so if you are in your home country and you're an educator and you're thinking about going abroad, you're not going to want to miss this show. And we want to hear from you. So if you have some question or some comments, it doesn't matter where you're tuning in from, drop them in the comments section. If you're in LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, we want to hear from you. So if you have some questions or some concerns, make sure you write us a comment and we'll throw that up on the screen. As you see, we've got one from SchoolRubric right now. If you're an international teacher that's already abroad, we want to hear from you too. This is about creating that community and learning from each other. So drop a comment about your experience, or maybe even a question you have about your next international teaching experience. Okay. And then finally, we have something really cool. At the end of the show, for the very first time, we're going to be doing something which is called a school spotlight. And on the school spotlight, we are going to be highlighting a school from one of the guests on today's panel and talk about that school. So you're going to want to stick around to the end of the show where we're going to spotlight a school. All right, that's a lot. But we're here to meet our guest, and I'm really excited today because we have people from all over the world, literally all over the world. We have a very diverse group of people. I've got Gustavo Dias, who's actually originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, who's now in Paris, France. We have Megan Docherty, who is in Bangkok, Thailand. We have Nick DeForest, who's usually hosting this show, who is in Vienna, Austria. Guys, let's hear a little bit about you before we get into the reasons as to why every teacher should go international. And Gustavo, I'm going to pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Ryan. Happy to be here in this panel with you guys and share a little bit of my experience. My name is Gustavo. I am from Rio. I teach physical education and coach sports at the American School of Paris currently. So like I said before, excited to be here and share a little bit of my experience with international teaching.
Yeah, Gustavo and we met in Rio de Janeiro at the American School. So I'm so, that's part of that building that community is the people that you meet in these international teaching experiences. So Gustavo, welcome. I know we offline, we got to talk about how excited I am about you being in Paris, France. So I'm going to pass it over to Nick DeForest, who is the usual host of Global Take. Nick, people already know you, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely, Ryan. But first, thank you for being the host, giving me a bit of time off, I would say, but also to broaden our horizons and topics here. This is great. So as you said, I'm in Vienna, Austria. My name is Nick DeForest. I work at the American International School. I'm work in the events office, which is basically like an athletic director. And I've been here in Vienna for over 20 years. And just recently, we started a podcast called the Globetrotting ADs, which you can find out right there and learn more about athletics in international schools. Thanks.
Yeah, he's been abroad. I mean, talk about veterans. You've been abroad for a very long time and at one school, which is exciting. I mean, that says a lot about the school where you are. And Nick also produces the show, so we're incredibly grateful for having him here today to kind of be on the other side of the table. And at the end of the show, I want you to tell me how I did. So take some notes and give me some take out your rubric and give me some feedback. Megan, let's learn about you over in Bangkok, Thailand.
Yeah, so I'm Megan Docherty. I'm currently in Bangkok, Thailand. This is my second year here. I'm a middle school learning support teacher. I'm also the subject team leader for middle school as well, and I'm also a varsity basketball coach here. I'm super excited to be here. I've been abroad for 11 years. This is my fourth country that I've lived abroad, and so I'm super excited to talk about this topic today.
So much to learn from you guys. I love how we've got almost every continent taken represented here. So very, very excited for today's show and incredibly grateful for all of you tuning in and our guests, of course. So today we're going to be talking about why every educator needs to go international. And again, this is for not just for the person that's thinking about going abroad for the first time and learning about, how they can get into this wonderful community, but it's really all about even the people that are already abroad thinking about maybe their next school or just wanting to learn about what's going on in other schools. But before we get into the reasons of why you should go international, I want you to like and follow SchoolRubric on our YouTube channel. Go over there and we have all of our shows there. Or depending on if you're on another social media platform, just go ahead and hit that like button for us or share it out, please. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. We're very active on social media, so find us at any one of those. But hey, we're here to talk about the reasons why you should go international. Let's roll with our first reason, which is salary and benefits.
Let's talk salary and benefits. With many international schools offering generous relocation and benefits packages, including airfare, professional development, housing, and more, international teachers have the opportunity to significantly improve their quality of life from a salary and benefits perspective. What are some important salary and benefits considerations that prospective international teachers should take into account when thinking about making their move abroad?
Now, it's not just all about the salary and benefits, but that is an extremely important piece of the equation. I know that when I signed my first contract in Colombia to go teach abroad, I really didn't even look at the salary benefits. I was just so excited to go to Cartagena, Colombia. So I just signed the dotted line without really looking. But let's talk about some of those salary and benefits. Megan, I know you guys have some really great salary and benefits there in Thailand. So I'm going to pass it to you first.
Yeah, so I'm really, really fortunate here at the International School of Bangkok because the school does offer a competitive salary that is tiered based on numbers of years experience and also degrees as well. And so that's a huge bonus. Plus healthcare is provided, a hefty professional development allowance as well. They offer it both in the school and then also the opportunity to travel to different places. You get a flight allowance every year. We're also given a wellness fund that we could use towards things like gym memberships or massages or whatever falls under the wellness realm. We're also provided like a provident fund, which is like a retirement fund as well. So and then another huge thing is housing is provided by the school as well. So,
wow,
yeah.
that is incredible. When you listen, guys, it's going to be a tough act to follow, because I know that I know in Europe it's a little more. You don't get as many of those sorts of benefits. And one thing, Megan, I'm going to probably come back to you is, it's all relative too, right? Because I'm sure the cost of living in Bangkok is extremely is not near as high as it is for somebody like Gustavo, who's in Paris, France. Gustavo, can you talk a little bit about your salary and benefits package there at the American School in Paris?
Yes, Ryan. We have a similar scenario as far as professional development, which is a big part if you decide to go international, because you can keep developing your skills and developing your CV for your next opportunity. But like you said, Ryan, Central Europe is a little different as far as benefits. Here, for example, at the American School of Paris, we don't necessarily have housing allowances. We don't necessarily have flights, but we have a very competitive salary for the region. And it's usually very compatible with the cost of life in the region too. Yeah. And there are other benefits. For example, if you have a family like me, I have 2 kids. So having health insurance being covered by an excellent program from the government and things of that nature also helps you appreciate the opportunity of being here.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that offline, how important that is for you and your family, and how great the health benefits are. I was, as you guys are talking too about Europe too, about some of the things, I remember my first international experience, the table to go to Europe. Everybody wants to go to Europe, so it's a very competitive place to actually get there. So I'm excited to hear about it. I know it's got to be a good enough salary or some great benefits, because everybody really is excited about going to Europe. And Nick, let's talk to you, because you've been there for God knows how long, 20 years.
Yeah.
So there has to be some sort of benefit to being in Vienna, Austria, not just the mountains and all the beauty, but what are some of the salary and benefits at your school?
Right. It is a great place to live. And I think that's really it. Like Gustavo said, the salary may not be amazing. We may not have maids and cooks like a lot of schools and teachers get in Asia and Africa. But the salary, you can't complain about the salary, of course. It's really above average. But it just depends what you want to do with it. Do you want to just come over a couple of years and save a lot of money? Then Europe's really not the place for you. You might want to go to Asia for a couple of years, build up your bank account, and then move on. But what Europe has, and maybe why those lines are there, is the quality of life is just amazing. So, the extras all around, like you said, the mountains, the air, the slower pace, the less congestion, all those things, I think far outweigh a big paycheck, and that's why people want to come here and not leave. We have a lot of people in Austria that retire out of school, like I will, and they just don't want to leave. You don't want to leave a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Vienna just looks absolutely beautiful. And I know my international teaching experience, when I went to Portugal, and it wasn't about saving the money. It was just about going to a beautiful place and being involved in a beautiful country. Before we get to our next reason, Megan, I do want to just quickly come back to you and ask, the cost of living there is quite low, correct? So, that had to have been one of the things that you thought about when you made your decision, is, you got this great package, but then also just the day-to-day living has to be great for saving money. Could you just maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. That was probably one of the biggest pulls to me coming to Bangkok, was because for the past 9 years before that, I was in Europe. And so I got to experience like the, European schools and being able to travel around there. But I was at, I'm at the point in my life, I'm a little bit older now. I'm not 25 when I first moved abroad. I'm in my late 30s now, that I need to think about saving a little bit more money. And so Bangkok offers that, like, with the competitive salary, but a lot because of that cost of living is so low, that this is a place for me that I can just like store away a ton of money. And then who knows, maybe I'll also become a lifer over here. I don't know. Maybe I'll be the new Nick in Thailand.
Megan, I was just going to say, we have a lot of people that come from Asia, and that's the first thing they're really surprised. And
that is true.
Stay, but there's a lot that have come to our school for 2 years and they said, now I got to go back. and then they go back. So
I think the other thing too is like the work-life balance in Europe I found is a lot better than maybe Asia. It's very much like full on hardcore. And and that's some things that I miss about Europe is that the work-life balance was a lot better.
Well, you've also, one other benefit I know that has to be in Thailand has to be the food, which I just love. So, it's aside from it being very cheap, but you just got to have some amazing food. But we're going to get into our next reason, and that's a great segue into our next region, which is this expanding your worldview. So let's roll reason number 2.
All right, expand your worldview. I love this topic. How has living abroad expanded your worldview and thoughts about your own upbringing and home country? Living and working in an international school provides an opportunity to not only interact with other faculty and staff from all parts of the world, but also immerse yourself in the local culture.
Wow, this is one that's really dear to my heart, is expanding that worldview and learning a little bit about your own culture. I taught internationally in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, Portugal. I met my wife in Brazil. I speak 3 other languages, 3 languages total as a result of living abroad, and it really has shaped who I am as a person. Nick, I'm going to go to you because you're pretty much Austrian. So.
I definitely consider myself more Austrian than Canadian in some ways of thinking after so long. But, as a Canadian, I really thought I had this worldview, I knew what was going on, and man, was I ever wrong when I came here. It was in a good way. I was here for a few years before I started at the school. So I already got used to all the Austrian and kind of German ways. But as soon as I walked into the school, it's like a whole world right inside your building. The amount of cultures that you have just in almost every international school is staggering. And that's something I didn't realize before, being there. Just at our school, we have 60 different nationalities. And I remember subbing at the very beginning and trying to say some of the names of the kids. Oh man, did they ever laugh at me? Just some little thing like names, but it represents all the different cultures and backgrounds of all the different people that are inside your one building. Mm-hmm. So even just by moving to one international school in one country, you can expand your worldview, immensely. And I really love that. It's been really, really great.
Yeah, I love that you highlight that part about, the demographics of these international schools. You really do get kids from all over the world that come into the school. I know when I was in Rio, Gustavo, you probably remember this, you had that Norwegian connection with all the Norwegian kids so I learned a lot about Norway and the Norwegian way of life. There was actually even a cultural center for Norwegians there. So I guess I'll pass it to you, Gustavo. Could you maybe just talk about expanding your worldview? I know this is your first stint going international, so we'll give it to the new guy, and then I'll drop it right over to the veteran, Megan, after you're done.
Okay, yeah, you guys are making me feel like a rookie here. I only have 3 years here. I did spend 14 years at the American School of Rio, but I'm from there, so that doesn't really count. But I think you said it right, Ryan, when you talked about the language, for example. A lot of people think about language, learning a language, going to a new country, but it's way beyond just the language. In my home now, for example, I have 2 kids. My little one is at a French school, and my older boy is here at the American school. So my daughter speaks French at school, my son speaks English at school, and we speak Portuguese at home. So it's an incredible mix of languages, but at the same time, it's not only this. We walk around the city, we live the city, we experience the French culture, the restaurants, the food, the habits, the outdoor stuff that they do here. It's such a nice experience for us to just see a different culture and really live in it and experience on our daily lives. I think that's the biggest one for me. Beyond the language, it's the culture, it's the people, and the place you live in. That goes also beyond the school that you work in.
And I know it probably makes you really appreciate some of your own cultural, some of the own things that you have that you take with that are really Brazilian, right? I know how proud Brazilians are, but it makes you realize how important certain parts of your culture really are, and that you want to hold on to when you go someplace else. Megan, Could you talk a little bit about the worldview from Europe to Bangkok now? We'd love to hear.
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's like I've been so humbled over all these years in the sense of, I've been in two cultures where I can't read or write any of the letters, like the alphabet is completely different. And so I've gone to countries and I've been completely illiterate, right? And so they use using that different alphabet, like besides the language piece, right? Like that different alphabet piece, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even read that sign. That makes no sense to me. And it's just kind of like, you have to be vulnerable. Like, you're just put in the situation where you're like humbled by it. And I just have so much more empathy for others. And going back home, back to the US, like, it's like, I really do have like this newfound like understanding of people that have moved to the US and are starting over and trying to start a life there, because that's literally what I'm doing in Bangkok right now, or in the other countries I've been in as well.
Yeah, I think it really leads to that feeling of empathy for people. I remember the first time stepping off in Brazil and trying to order chicken and just not being able to do it. And so you really have to lean on the people in your community as a result of that. So I know how important that aspect of it is being able to empathize with others. We're going to get into reason number 3, which is talking about family experience, and not just family in the sense of your immediate family, but also that community that you build while going international. So let's roll reason number 3.
Family experience. While leaving many of your friends and loved ones back home can be challenging, the experience can be extremely enriching for the immediate family, as well as the new close connections you create in your new community. What have been some of the most enriching and memorable family and relational experiences you can share as part of your international journey thus far?
Gosh, I get teary-eyed listening and watching that. It's some of the connections that I've made internationally, and that's why we have Gustavo on the show. We met in Rio, but it's just those bonds that you make with your immediate family, but also the people that you have in contact in international schools really create this lasting sort of family. And so I do want to talk about family experience, and I'm going to drop it to Gustavo, who's got big family or over in Paris, France. So Gustavo, start us off.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. No, I think for family, one of the coolest things that we love traveling, for example, with our kids, and we're crazy. We take our kids around everywhere. And here, being in Central Europe, you're close to everything. You can drive 2 hours and a half in the Netherlands. You drive a little more in Belgium. If you go south for a few more hours, you're in Spain. There are all areas of France, for example, to explore. So one of the cool benefits for us has been having the chance to travel around with our kids and get to know all these places. And like you mentioned, Ryan, the connections you build with the other families that you work, then maybe you move on to a different place, but you end up meeting and bumping into people all over the place. For example, I spent the December vacation in a house that is from one of my friends, also from Rio, that worked with us there. She's now in Valencia, so she offered a house to us in Spain to spend the December vacation there. So all these connections, they sort of come to your life back again in different ways, in different shapes, and allow you to do super, super fun things as a family.
Yeah, that's great. We just saw a comment from Matt Fleming pop up there, and you really do learn little things every day about the culture. And it's not like being a tourist. You can say, well, I can do a whirlwind tour of Europe and check off 20 countries, but you learn nothing until you've actually, lived in experienced that country. So that's one of the great things. Family for me, obviously, it changes if you're somewhere short-term or long-term, and what you can do with that, your family while you're there, like you said, Gustavo, or what the family you might miss at home. If you're taking a 2-year stint, it's just like going away for university. Your family at home will be fine, and you'll see them in the summer. But obviously, when you stay longer, it's a whole different ballgame. But the best thing for me that doesn't happen too much back home is that you're at school with your kids. So if you have kids, they come to your school and you can see them grow up every day. I have a daughter in elementary and one just in the middle school. And it's just great to walk the halls and have someone jump up behind you and give you a hug. And, maybe when they get into ninth and 10th grade, it won't be so cool for them to see you in the halls. I'm not there yet, so it's all great for me.
Yeah, I love, I've always felt a little jealous of the students that were in my school just because the rich experience they were getting by being in that international school. So when you talk about that, Nick, it really hits home. Like, I'm back here in the States and I almost want to just go abroad to give my daughter that sort of international experience in the school, because it really is a great education and a great experience for the kids. Now, Megan, talk a little bit about your kind of the community that you've built there in Bangkok, or even before when you were in Europe.
Yeah, so I'm a single woman living abroad. And so what I've been like really lucky about teaching abroad is that you kind of like, you just become family with people here, right? Like, so it's, I mean, this is really crazy. I was in the hospital a few weeks ago because I got a really bad stomach bug. Hello, Southeast Asia. And a phenomenal friend here who's like family took me to the hospital, took a day to be at the hospital with me, spent the nights with me at the hospital while I was there. I mean, the bonds that you build with these people abroad are just so strong, and that like I have friends all over the world, right? Like, and that are friends for life, and we have this bond with each other. And so friends, like that whole cliche saying of like friends are like family, like you really live that here,
Yeah, I think back to all of the friends that I've made international, and the other side of SchoolRubric is somebody that I met on my first international experience. So it really does create that connection and that community and that bond that really lasts forever. We're going to get into our last kind of prompt, and this is literally what sort of advice we can give people that are watching about international teaching.
International teaching advice. All right, let's hear everybody's advice. What advice do you have for educators thinking about making the move to go international?
All right, some words of wisdom. Nick, we're going to start with you. What are some words of wisdom from a veteran in Austria?
Yeah, I would say don't be fixated on one city or one country that you have to go to. Yeah, for two reasons. One, the city that you think you may really like may not be that way when you get there, because living in a city is much different than just thinking it's a cool place. But also because there's just so many great cities and countries in the world that you've never even heard of right now. Yeah, so just go international, get your feet wet. Don't be fixated on one place.
Let's go to Gustavo. Gustavo, some words of wisdom.
So my advice comes from someone who did this a little bit later. So my first one now in Paris, I was already 38 years old when I came and I already had a family. So my advice is just jump in. Do not hesitate. Be open-minded. Like Nick mentioned, don't be so fixated in just one place, but be open-minded early and jump in. You're not going to regret it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a wonderful experience. I got a late start too. Like when I went to my first teaching fair, I'm like, how did I not know this existed? Why didn't somebody tell me about it beforehand? Which is part of what we're trying to do, but with shows like this, is to expose people to this great and amazing world of international teaching. Megan, what's your little words of advice for everybody?
I mean, it really goes off of what Nick and what Gustavo says. Be open-minded, take the risk, and if you're unsure, just ask questions. There's places on Facebook like International Teachers Abroad, like there's groups on there. Get on those, find the information, ask the questions, and do it. Just take the risk. It's worth it.
Yeah, take the leap of faith and do it. Those are great words of wisdom, guys. Thank you so much for those. And and my little advice to everybody is find a community of people that are already doing it, like Megan, like Nick, like Gustavo. People love talking about this wonderful experience of international teaching. So reach out to those people, reach out to us, and we'd love to talk about it. As promised, we are for the first time going to be spotlighting a school in a segment called School Spotlight.
It's time for School Spotlight on Global Take, presented by SchoolRubric. Let's learn more about the stories and information from schools around the world. What's your school story?
We are flying all the way to South America, in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, where I actually met Gustavo. And today we are highlighting the school where both Gustavo and I taught, which is Escola Americana do Rio de Janeiro, or the American School of Rio de Janeiro, otherwise known as EARJ. And if you look at that beautiful scene right there, I taught just right of that mountain called the Dois Irmãos, the Two Brothers Mountain, in a place called Gavia. And originally they had just one campus. Now they've expanded to two campuses in Gavia and Barra de Tijuca. This was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It's where I met Gustavo. And so we're going to just kind of talk a little bit about some of the school activities and fun in Rio de Janeiro and at EARJ. So Gustavo, I'm going to pass it to you, and let's learn a little bit about some of the campus life or activities at school.
Ryan, it's so emotional for me to talk about ERJ. This is where everything started for me as a PE teacher in Rio, in Brazil, discovering that all those things existed in my city, a school that was engraved in the mountains, a school that had a huge infrastructure for PE activities and sports, where I had the chance to learn about climbing, for example, be a certified instructor in climbing and taking the kids to field trips where we were climbing the mountains of Rio. We had height elements inside our school. I also had the opportunity to coach sports and teach physical education, which are things that I love doing, and being around kids and influencing kids. That school is really, really dear to my heart, not to mention the connections that I made there, the amazing PE department and people that I worked with in all those years there. So that school was an incredible experience for me. And not to mention the Rio weather. And now living in Central Europe, I appreciate the weather that we had there much more.
Yeah, I have, Rio is so dear to my heart, and the school ERJ was just an amazing community. And what I loved, and you'll see in one of these pictures, that's actually right outside of my classroom. We're gearing up for the Rio World Cup, and my students had gifted me with this wonderful Brazilian national uniform. And so we just had, I still remember my classroom. It was just amazing. But what I really appreciated about ERJ was also the opportunities to interact with my students in different ways, whether it was through, coaching of futsal, which is a version of soccer. But we did so many cool things, like took the kids surfing, did bike rides on Ipanema Beach. We did climbing, as Gustavo mentioned. So all of those activities that kind of surround opportunities that we had because of where the location was were incredible for the students and also incredible for me. I'm going to pass it over to Gustavo, who's just going to talk a little bit about the cultural experiences of Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, as a Carioca, it's easy for me to talk about Rio. Rio, for me, is a perfect place. You have everything to do depending on what you like, especially if you like to do outdoor activities, if you like to do sports. There are so many opportunities to be around. It's a big city, but at the same time, it keeps that nature around you. Everywhere you go, you see mountains, you see the ocean. And like I mentioned before, the weather is just unbelievable. So we had a chance to travel all over that beautiful country, not only the city of Rio, but the beautiful country of Brazil, and meet the people and enjoy the Brazilian culture, which is famous all over the world for being a happy, a group of people that are always happy and proud of who they are and their country. So talking about Rio is super easy for me. Like I mentioned to you offline, we can go hours and hours and hours talking about the great opportunities you have to travel and enjoy.
Spend a whole show talking about Rio. Before I kind of mentioned a few things. Gustavo, just explain to our viewers karaoke. You mentioned karaoke, and not everybody that knows what a karaoke is. What is a karaoke?
Carioca is when you were born in the city of Rio de Janeiro. That's how you're referred to, as a carioca, if you're born in that city. It's a name, but it brings a certain image and culture to it, and we're very proud, of course.
Yeah, karaoke, they're near and dear to my heart. I consider myself an Amerioka, which is American with a little bit of karaoke in it. And I love that yours, when you put your pictures up, I love that your picture, of course, has skateboarding. I've got skateboarding. There I am on top of one of my favorite hikes, which is a great hike right near Rio. And one thing that I loved was Megan talked about this earlier in the show, was that work-life balance. And you really had that living in Rio. So, I would go from, full day of teaching, and we would run, on days that I wasn't coaching, we would run to the beach and we'd be surfing at sunset right in Ipanema Beach, overlooking these beautiful mountains. And I really remember sitting there with a friend, and I'm getting kind of emotional about this. It's just, how lucky are we to be able to do this? And it really was something that we were really grateful for. And it just, that work-life balance was incredible. So, Rio is just near and dear to my heart. What a great experience. Well, this is the first ever school spotlight. So we're going to be doing this every week, where we spotlight a different school from the guest. And I know we didn't get to Megan and Nick's school, but I promise we will in the future. So stick around for a next episode of Global Take, where we highlight a school in Thailand or in Austria. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you are thinking about going international, do it. I see Charles turning in, and he's visiting us. He's got his own show inside the principal's office. Charles, we're going to convince you to go international one of these days. So if you're an international teacher, and hopefully this dialogue help kind of inform you and help kind of build that community. This is all the time that we have for Global Take today. So I want to thank especially our guests today. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being on the show. I want everybody that's watching to mark your calendars for our next episode. We've talked about a lot of the positives today, and the next episode at the same time next week will be about the challenges in international education. Finally, I want to encourage you. We got another show. We got plenty of shows. I want to encourage you all to check out our next show, which is going to be this weekend on YouTube or at SchoolRubric.com. And this is Breaking Barriers, Equity in School Leadership. And that's part of our Educators Without Borders program. And that'll be on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'd have to check it's a little later in the day if you're in European time, but check out this show. You won't want to miss our Educators Without Borders series. That'll be again on Saturday. And again, next week we will be back here, and we will be talking about the challenges of going international. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. We appreciate this community. That's what it's all about, is learning from people like our guests and from our audience. You're amazing. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to our guests. Until next week. Thank you for watching School Rubric on YouTube. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe in order to stay looped in on all of our diverse collection of shows, interviews, panels, tutorials, and more from educators around the globe. And visit us at SchoolRubric.com for even more great content, such as our online articles, Interact magazine, featured podcasts, and more. Thank you.